Back to Paul Krugman again. I noticed that people like Paul Krugman, the Nobel Prize-winning economist, Ruth Marcus, who is the associate editorial page editor or the deputy editorial page editor at the Washington Post, the editorial board at the Washington Post. I mean, all of a sudden, the New York Times, that's where Krugman writes for, in addition to his own Facebook page. But all of a sudden, the focus is shifting to what you and I have known and talked about for how many years now? I mean, damn. I mean, even going back to the Bush years, this slow erosion of not just our democratic system, that has been corrupted for the past, I don't know, pick a number, 50 years anyway. Totally corrupted. But the slow erosion of the promises that were made in the Constitution, promises that were never fulfilled, but that we all, I do believe this in my heart of hearts, we all believed at some point would be fulfilled. We hold these truths to be self-evident. Okay, that never came to fruition. And I think anyone who has been paying attention would understand that. Now, I grant you that a lot of white people are just totally unaware, totally unconscious. It's just background noise, both the quotes from the Constitution and the screams of anguish from the people who've been left out of those promises. All of it is just background noise to the majority of white people. And it is something that the past 3 or 4 months, using the coronavirus, COVID-19, as sort of a can opener, the lid to this horror has been pried loose. And it's like toothpaste. You can't put it back in the tube. It's out now. Anybody who claims ignorance now is a fool. We know what's going on. How we react to it will determine where we stand, where it concerns liberty and justice for all. And I think what people of color have known for a long time, that the promise of liberty and justice for all was bullshit. It was worse than bullshit, because it left off the end of that sentence of liberty and justice for all who are Caucasian. I mean, people of color have known this for a long time. We white folk, we just never paid attention. Why, oh yeah, the struggling masses. Well, who said it? Was it Karl Marx or was it Jesus of Nazareth? The poor will always be with us, or whatever. The poor and the colored and, so on and so forth. But little by little, I think the editorial writers, the top of the politically motivated writers in this country, I'm talking only about journalists here, are starting to realize what you have known, what I have known. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. We've known this for decades. We have watched this erosion, the erosion of the promise, not the erosion of the reality. That was never available to everybody. The promise was always available to everybody. I mean, that's the thing about promises. If they're not fulfilled, well, it doesn't cancel them. They're still there, right? But all of a sudden, and it is all of a sudden, and that's the part that is very distressing to me, that it's all of a sudden. People who have had the power of the pen for decades are finally waking up that this country is dissolving. Our institutions are dissolving. Well, the Constitution's still there. Declaration of Independence, all of our documents, they're still there. They're still there. They're not going to change. But the institutions that were built around those documents are being dissolved. When did it start? With Lyndon Johnson? With our imperialist wars? Or was it Theodore Roosevelt at the turn of the last century? I don't know. I don't know when the real erosion started. Was it when the first corporation was put together? But it had begun, and it has accelerated. And here we are in the year 2020, and we have a fascist, racist thug in the White House surrounded by fascist, racist thugs. And everything is being dissolved into this vat of acidic fascism. It's all going in. Justice, freedom, honesty, decency, morality, ethical behavior, education, science. It's all being dumped into this huge cauldron of bubbling fascism. And who's standing there with the ladle in his hand, stirring it with this look of maniacal glee on his face, this orange ape, Donald Trump. Which brings me to Krugman's column. He writes that some of us knew from the beginning that Trump was not up to the job of being president, that he wouldn't be able to deal with a crisis that wasn't of his own making. Still, the magnitude of what this bum has failed to do, and I'm not quoting Krugman right now, what this bum has failed to do regarding the COVID-19 pandemic has shocked even the cynics, even the people who were convinced that, well, we'll get past Trump. Don't worry about it. Here's a little factoid for you to bounce on your knee. At this point, Florida alone has an average daily death toll that's because of the virus that's roughly equal to that of the entire European Union. The entire European Union has 20 times the population of Florida. But think what this incompetent ass DeSantis, the governor of Florida, think what he has done. He's followed Trump, just like this moronic bastard that runs Georgia, Brian Kemp. Just like all of these crazy son of a bitchin' white male Republican Christians who are in positions of power, they're taking us right into our own coffins. How did this happen? Well, Krugman, being much more rational and calm than I, says this. One key element in our deadly debacle has been extreme short-sightedness. At every stage of the crisis, Trump and his allies refused to acknowledge or get ahead of disasters that everyone paying attention clearly saw coming. Now, that's how a Nobel Prize-winning economist puts it. You can imagine my reinterpretation of those two sentences. But I'll leave it to your imagination. Let me go on. Denials, offhand denials, all that flippant bullshit that Trump dumped on the American public going back to February, all that or January even, all the idiotic, feckless attitude that COVID-19 posed a threat. That gave way to more blithe denials that rapid reopening would lead to a new surge in infections. Oh, no, of course it won't. That's just the Democrats. That's a new hoax. They're just trying to prevent my reelection. I want more people dead so I can get reelected. God. And now that that surge is on us, that was predicted by every medical expert, Republican governors are now responding sluggishly and grudgingly. Okay, let's do some masks. Well, Trump And these filthy pigs who root around in the White House are doing nothing at all. Nothing. So anyway, enhanced unemployment benefits have been a crucial, absolute lifeline to tens of millions of American workers. Unfortunately, all of those beneficiaries are now just a few days away from being thrown overboard, because all this stuff ends on or before July 31st. July 31st is 2 weeks from today. That $600 weekly supplement. That applies only to benefit weeks that end on or before July 31st, a Friday. State unemployment benefits, I didn't know this, but Krugman writes, typically end on Saturday or Sunday, so the supplement will end in most places on July 25th or 26th, and millions of workers will see their incomes plunge 60% or more just a few days from now. This is the cliff over which Krugman is telling us we are going to plunge. It's been 2 months since the House of Representatives passed a relief measure that, among other things, would have extended these enhanced benefits to the rest of the year. But the Senate Republicans and this filthy rat in the White House, none of them have shown any sense of urgency about what is heading our way in less than 2 weeks. Why is that? Well, part of the answer is that, as usual, Trump and his gangsters don't give a shit. And as usual, they're far behind the COVID-19 curve. That's science. That's reality. That's fact. That means Trump and his gangsters don't pay any attention to it. They are more willing, like his bitch of a daughter was, to hold up cans of Goya beans, right? Jesus. But the Trump monsters are still talking about a rapid V-shaped recovery. In economic, think of the stock market plunging down and then rocketing back up. A V-shaped recovery that'll bring us quickly back to full employment, making the special aid to the unemployed, unnecessary. Because everything's going to be okay. Hey, the stock market is doing fine right now. That doesn't mean shit. It means nothing except to the billionaires and the zillionaires and the quadrillionaires who are just feasting. They are just cannibalizing this country right now. But the Trump monsters are oblivious to what most of us can see, once it's shown to us, which is what Krugman does, and that is an economy that is stumbling again as the coronavirus surges back. We are heading for some shit, Truth Seeker. I mean an ocean of it.
Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. As you know, we've switched formats and are now broadcast exclusively on the Progressive Voices Network. So that means you get fewer program interruptions, no corporate commercials, and lots of profanity. But our format change also means some of our radio listeners no longer hear the program. It's been a while since I mentioned our podcasts, so you may have forgotten that there is a way to listen to this program anytime you need a good dose of screaming. Visit MikeMalloy.com and subscribe to our podcast. You have your choice. You can listen to the ranting with the audio podcast or listen and watch me lose control with a video podcast subscription. As a podcast subscriber, you can download the program to your mobile device and take me with you wherever you go. And if you have a friend who needs a dose of truth-seeking, you can give a gift subscription as well. That's MikeMalloy.com. And never miss a minute of the uncensored fun and frivolity.